This morning I talked about the assumptions that we make about, when we get on here and start talking about how, our perspective on things and how we approach things, and we make lots of assumptions about that people are the same, so you must draw boxes, you must draw shapes, you must know the shapes, you must understand geometry, is what was coming through to me, and I was thinking, well, why? I don't need to know those things. And this is the thing. This is the real sort of the message, is that it's different for all of us for doing this. And then when you see, this is an old drawing that I did at a time when I was doing, and I'm going to do one now. And occasionally I do more than heads. So that's the general thing. That was a lesson that I did with my friend Kevin, and we were looking at just sort of more depth. Again, sometimes it is just heads, and but other times it's more than heads. It's like, and the premise for this was the same with this one. I was going to do some paintings of sort of grand nature, but I never got around to it, mainly because of materials. Because I was looking at somebody painting the other day and thinking, I wish I had brushes like that. I wish I had those right tiny brushes, but I don't. I'm stuck with big lumpy things that you can't really paint anything with detail. So consequently, I never get round to turning those amazing drawings into a painting. However, that would be a kind of a difficulty for me, because I think that the first time I connect with a subject, right, is the most important time. If I then have to paint that, I won't connect in the same way. So therefore, it won't have the same kind of response, same pure response that I want in the drawings that I do. So I have to capture either first time in paint or first time in charcoal, or this thing. This is a thing I'm completely different to. Preparation drawings, preemptive drawings. It's not me. This is the one and only time I will draw that face, and that's because I want the purity of my response. So this thing of it all being different for all of us, this response, the way we execute, the way we learn, all those things. And the one thing that keeps appearing and keep popping up is this, the creative block thing. Now, I know firsthand what that does. What in one context, and that is that I had all the hang-ups of it must be done like this, it must be this good, I must use this equipment, comparison, competition, all that sort of stuff, and it resulted in me not wanting to do it. That's more than creative. I had creative block, but the actual wanting to just not do it anymore is more than creative block. It was something else. But initially, I had creative block, and I did suffer from the usual sort of things. And then when I see it now, people talking about it, I think, well, what's creative block to you? What is it? What does that mean? I personally don't struggle with it, but I know, not now, but I know that people do. And I thought this thing about how to overcome creative blocks, this over, arching comment, it's different for different people. There are different reasons why you would not want to draw or paint, and or make art full stop. There are different reasons. We all have different reasons for it. I'm not sure that you can say that there's a one size fits all for it. As I said, I don't suffer from it, and I could tell you why I don't suffer from it, but it might not work for you. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So I would rather propose a more analytical assessment of what it is that blocks your creativity, and then address that. So how to overcome creative block as a general statement would be irrelevant, because it's not, like I say, my approach to it might be completely different to your approach to it, because I have different needs, and things that block me are not the same things that block you. So so that was it. That was really the the premise of this. It was how can someone say in a blanket statement that this one thing, because you get the usual sort of, look at other people's work, copy other people's work harder, do it more often, don't think about it too much, all those sort of usual kind of approaches to this thing that is unique to you, really, even though we're supposed to all suffer from it, and we suffer from it because of the lack of understanding of what we do. That is really it. I mean, the bottom line is that we kind of are thrown into it, and that we have to find our own way. And sometimes you get misled, and consequently, because you're misled, like with me, because you're misled, because there was nobody else to sort of guide me. And I'm talking about pre-internet, so. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, I have no idea. But it was pre-internet when I suffered with it, and but I had no body, and no mentor, no teacher, nobody that could understand what it was that I was going through. So, and help me to analyse it and fix it. So, but I think that's the starting point for anybody. I mean, I as I said, I don't suffer from it, but I have a particular approach. So I think the starting point really has to be this. Well, what is it that's blocking you? What is it that and does it need to block? Can it be removed? Can that roadblock be removed, regardless of what it is? And there's no kind of medicine, just make loads of work, just keep doing it, and you work your way out of it. That's not good advice, but that's what people tell you. But it might have worked for them. But again, that's the problem we have. I mean, I make assumptions about your needs, and many other people on here who talk about doing this also make assumptions about the people that are watching them, and it's not right. It's because we all do it differently. Like I was saying about the mechanical side of things this morning, but as I said, it just keeps popping up. People keep talking about this creative block, and the thing is that to a lot of people, the block is how can I say this without it sounding a little bit condescending? It's kind of irrelevant, It's sort of, you got a block because you can't draw flowers, or whatever. The block is a consequence of that intention, and that sort of. It's not irrelevant. It's misplaced intention, shall we say? Because a lot of people drift into doing this as a kind of a hobby or a pastime or whatever else, and then realise that they really enjoy doing it and they're really good at doing it, but they're committed. This thing, that thing I said about in that what you need to think about before you start doing portraits. They're committed to a methodology, an approach, and that is counter to their true self. So that's the problem. The block is that the same with me. The same thing happened to me. So the block was, and the reason why I stopped, was because I was in the wrong place. And being in the wrong place meant that there was this level of discontent that I couldn't explain. It was because I was doing the wrong thing. I was singing the wrong tune, and that was not my fault. I was not aware of doing this. The way I was doing this was an issue. The way I was approaching what I was doing was an issue, because I was locked into all kinds of assumptions. The illustration thing, all that kind of stuff. I was locked into all that, and I'd got into a way of doing it that was just based on other people's thinking. I'd not had time to analyse what I do or understand. I mean, I'd never had exposure to real artists. I never had and I don't mean the people that really have a cause, or the real artists tend not to be that visible. You don't really see people that are what I'd consider to be real artists. They tend to be hidden away. This is the classic. For years they beaver away in an attic somewhere, and then when they pass, people discover all this amazing art. It's like they're not in it for the glory or even the fortune. Often they're poor and starving, and the usual sort of artist trope thing, starving artists in a garret and all that kind of stuff. But this, I'd never been exposed to people with a greater depth of understanding of what it was to be creative, and I was only exposed to people that could do it. There were production orientated type of people, and there wasn't a lot of thought in terms of the depth of meaning. There was lots of thought in terms of how it was done and the skill that should be applied and so on and so forth. But it wasn't particularly deep. It was all superficial. So consequently, I say I didn't have the opportunity to question and to say, well, does it really matter? Does it really matter if that mark is this way or that way or whatever? It mattered to me at the time, and because it mattered with other people that I was around, because they were illustrators, basically. So, as I said, this is the problem. You sort of drift into doing this, and without understanding fully what it is that you're getting into, because it isn't a normal kind of scenario. This is not maths or physics or English or any of those kind of known quantities. This is something completely different. There is emotions involved in it. So you can't rationalise it and say, oh, it's because of this, because there's an emotion involved in it. And the people, I was just looking at somebody's sketchbook this morning, and it was beautifully drawn sketches of faces, and they'd mastered the technique of drawing faces, but that's all it was. It was just that. It was technique, and the amount of stylization, and that was it. It was no more. But those people are defined as artists because they can do what people recognise and what people can comprehend. But the artists that can do things that people don't recognise and don't comprehend are the artists that you want to talk to. They're the people that are questioning reality. They're trying to find beauty in reality. They're trying to show you the beauty that they see in reality. But they're not the people that are going to be necessarily in the mainstream. They're not going to be visible to everybody because they don't fit. And I think that is probably where the block comes from, where people that are truly creative, or anybody that's creative, full stop. I don't think there is a degree of. It's a bit like happiness. You're either you're happy or you're not. It's as simple as that. But I think creativity is the same thing. There is no more creative than others, which is why I have this bone of contention with competitions. But I think the problem is that people are experiencing their creativity, and because it doesn't fit with the known creator, or even their known creator, because they've got exposure to a great deal of aesthetic stimulus, if it doesn't fit with the known, then they find this problem. They probably try and solve it with mechanics. I'm going to learn more of this, I'm going to learn to do this better, or probably solve it in that way, or think they can solve it in that way, but that just digs a bigger hole, because all of a sudden you're trying to turn it into a known quantity, a known entity, when really creativity is the unknown. It just exists in the unknown. It's not it has to be in that place, otherwise it's just going to be something that you produce, and it has little or nothing to do with your soul. It's just a mechanical skill that you've learned. So it has to be unknown. It has to be forever hidden from you, and you're always trying to manifest it. It can't be, oh, I know what it is. It's this. Now, I worked in design, and I remember the guy, I forget his name now. It's from a London agency, and he used to say about being creative on demand. And he said it's the most difficult thing to do. I mean, he related it to childbirth, which I think was a bit excessive. But the guy hadn't got kids, he wasn't married, so he'd never seen his wife in childbirth. And anybody who has would never use that analogy. So I've never seen anybody in pain, that much pain, through choice. So, you know what I mean? But he did say that this, being creative was an immense struggle. Because we did it as it was our job, and you're doing it on demand, like you're turning the tap on, and that resulted in formulaic approaches. So design. This is why computers could do it, and this is why you're talking about. See, we used to have back in the day, and this is another sort of thing I suppose that computers have got rid of, is that we used to have people that designed, and we used to have people that did layouts, and now it's the same thing. The layout artist is now the designer because of the equipment, because of the tools. But the problem with that is that we live in a template society now. So design now, as with nearly everything, is based on a template. So you've got a template to write a CV, for instance. So one thing that needs to be more unique than anything else is your CV. It has to reflect you as an individual. It doesn't want to be a template, does it? These HR companies, they want, it's got to be a template. Here's our CV template. Fill in the right boxes. That's horrendous. It's horrendous. You want to know if I'm employing somebody, I want to know their unique qualities. I don't want to. It just sort of, it looks like another one. And then, these companies never even bother to look at the CVs, even though and probably because you filled out a template. So don't fill out a template, write in gold ink and put it on pink paper and stand out from the crowd, is what I'd say. But this is the problem with what we're doing with this. We tend to move towards a more understandable solution, thinking that will resolve this issue of creative block. So for me, it's not an issue. The creative block's not an issue because I don't care, and that sounds a bit flippant, but what it means is that I do this for my own benefit. It's not for your benefit. It's not for anybody else's benefit. I do it for my own benefit. So all that matters is that I am happy with what I'm doing. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what I'm drawing, whether it's a floating head or a scene or what. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It matters that I'm enjoying what I'm doing. That's the only thing. Quite sort of selfish, I suppose, in that I just want to please myself. The slight problem with it is that sometimes the pleasing can be dependent. There is a level of it still has to comply kind of thing, and I fight against that. I think that the desire to replicate can sometimes be an overwhelming desire, and that is an issue that I've got with my own approach. It's always that balance between I just want to respond, but at the same time there's an element of it still has to look like that person, it still has to feel like that person. So I'm this is why I bang on about the essence thing, because I think that if I can focus on the essence, I can put the likeness thing, the production likeness thing, to the back. I can focus on the likeness and let on the life force and let the likeness be part of that. So it's less about production. So I don't get trapped. I don't get trapped into the mechanics of doing things. And that's the thing. That's probably what I would say. And that plus the zero expectations, not caring whether someone likes it or not, whether I meet anybody's standards, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really have a block. If anything, I struggle with references, because that criteria, I've got to feel the essence of somebody. That criteria is quite demanding, so it's not always just a good picture. It's not a good reference or a great model. I have to have a little bit more than that. So that can be a blocking thing, but it's not the same as just not being motivated. So, and there are lots of things I do, to try and get over or try to avoid the likelihood of being blocked, is the putting things away. So that, which is interesting about the painting, the drawing that I showed you to start with. So it's interesting that drawing, along with all those other drawings that you saw, they're all in a folder, this folder, and there are 43 of these things. So it's in there. It's in there. It's not hanging around, and it's not influencing me in any way. It's just done and gone. In a way, it's just done and gone. So all of these drawings are they're not there to judge me, if you know what I mean. They are things that I've done. They're just things that I've done, and I moved on. So in a way, so what I do is a kind of culmination of all those things without a recognition of all those things. So I'm always fresh and new to this. This is the first time as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time I've done it, and the residue of these drawings, which this is one of last year's. So the residue of doing one of these drawings is this. It's partly the skill acquisition that occurred during the process, but it's also the level of understanding in terms of the relevance of what I'm doing. So I'm always, this is always fresh and new, as I say, always the first time I've done it as far as I'm concerned, but there is a residue of skills and psychological approach to what I'm doing that I can't get away from, which is good, because there is still elements that we learn and skills that we acquire during the process of it, and it just helps to manifest my intention better because of that, as I say, the build up of those skills. But going back to the block thing, I just as with that thing this morning with the guy talking about the shapes that you must recognise in order to the skill, the artist block, you've got to understand, is just as the guy with the shapes and the tubes and whatever else. It's just relevant to what they do. It's not necessarily relevant to you. This assumption that we all suffer from artist block, first of all, I think is probably the wrong assumption. And secondly, the fact that we all suffer from it and we all suffer from it in the same way is also the wrong assumption. So inevitably, when you see these kind of propositions, they're going to be wrong, because how do they know what's blocking you? How do they know that it's affecting you a certain way? They don't. They're just making assumptions about what's wrong with you and the reason why you can't do it, and that's not good. That's not good. You end up again where I was, which was sort of misinformed and misguided, and going down the wrong path, because one of my lecturers has said to me, if you learn to draw people, you'll always be in work. And, those sort of things, these sort of trigger things that when you come from a working class family, being in work was my only goal, to get paid so I could, if I could get paid doing what I can do, because I could only do this. It turns out that I could actually program, but at the time I didn't have the education to be able to understand that what my potential was. But at the time, this is all I could do. I could draw, So this guy said, "You'll always be in work if you can do this." So I learned to do that. Bad advice, but it meant I could earn a living. But which, to some extent, would be you consider good advice. But this is the thing. So whenever you see anything that promises to resolve something, to help you draw eyes better or whatever, just think of it in terms of that's what they found helped them to draw eyes better. It may not be what you would find unless you're pure in or you're clear in your creative intention. If you're somebody that thinks, yeah, it's a mechanical thing, and I want to be able to engineer a face, then if that's you're clear about that, and it's not just because everybody else does it, and it's not just because it's a desired skill, then by all means follow their lead. I mean, the problem is that a lot of these people are really good at what they do, so it's a bit of a, you can't get away from that. They're really great, and this individual that's showing the sketchbook of faces, for a blind man can see that girl had spent a whole life in her bedroom drawing these amazing faces and developing this stylized approach. It's clear to see. So they have nothing that they can give you other than, it took me 12 years to be this good. So if you want to be this good, you're going to have to commit in the same way. That's all that these people can say. There is no magic bullet with that. It's just a case you're going to do it, and you get that all the time. People will say it's all about repetition and working hard. But the danger of that is that someone that concludes that journey in a way that's they're happy with, it's fine, it's great. But not everybody wants to conclude the journey unless, as I say, you're perfectly clear in your intention. But not everybody else is going to want to conclude in the same way. Again, this is back to the, learning to paint in a classical way simply by following what the classical teachings are and ending up in the same place. It's that. Are you sure you want to be there? Are you sure you got on this bus, right? Are you sure you want to go to that destination? You may find that on the journey, this is the Buddha thing. On the journey, you may find that, hang on a minute, I want to be here. I don't want to go all the way. I want to be. This is I think there's a great quote, a Buddhist quote about he went on a journey and didn't arrive at his destination, but actually found his destination during the journey. And I think that is something you've got to be wary of. You follow these I don't think the teachings, but you follow these routes that people set out, and you run the risk of finding out that actually I'm not on the right bus. I should have been on a different bus. And some people aren't. A lot of people aren't, and because their definition of what this is, as I said, the understandable, comprehensible. We've seen it all before, kind of understanding. So it's nice, it's safe to be in that place. The thing about being creative is that it's not a safe place. You're not going to guarantee to arrive at the destination, because it's not predictable. It shouldn't be predictable, should it? It shouldn't be guaranteed that this is going to work. You shouldn't have that guarantee. It should be simply a case of doing it and then figuring out if it was worth doing it. I mean, this is why I'm talking about the block thing. This is why the joy. If I focus on the joy of doing it, I can't fail to do what to manifest my creativity. I can't fail to do that if I focus on the joy of doing it, because that's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether or not it works out, whether or not it's a perfect copy of a face. It doesn't matter whether I capture the essence. I mean, it matters because that's my primary goal, but it doesn't really matter if I enjoy doing it, because that's the ultimate goal. Did I enjoy doing it? And strangely enough, that joy-focused approach invariably works more effectively than an approach that's based on some algorithmic formula. You know, this is the way you always should do it. This is why you should divide the head and all that sort of thing. So it's for me it works, but I'm not sure that everybody would. That's what I'm saying about me assuming that everybody would feel about the same way about doing this. And I can, you know, I stood up and did the demos and I've talked about it being a joyful event and all this sort of thing, and everybody agrees with me. Everybody, yeah, we're into all that. We want to just enjoy doing it, but then they get to doing it and they just put themselves under immense pressure to perform, and that defeats the whole object. You can't, you know, have joy. The only joy that they appreciate is if it turns out to be a really good portrait, and everybody says, "Oh, you've done a great job there." You know, there's no measure of, you know. Somebody said to me that they could see the joy in work, and I'm the same. Somebody said that you can, when someone enjoys what they're doing, you can see it. You can see it in their endeavours, whatever it might be. I mean, you know it when you see people playing instruments, and you can see people who really enjoy it. And that's the thing. But nobody really, and when it comes to this, nobody says, "Oh, it doesn't look anything like it," but I can see you enjoy doing it. And if they do say that, they're just patronising you, aren't they? So it's a funny thing. I think that's why you've got to really know your own place, know your own destiny, know your own intentions, be clear on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. I think it's all of that, which is I think that if you wanted to talk about, you know, removing the artist block, I think that's probably one of the ways you do that. If you were completely clear in your intention and understanding of what it is that you're trying to do and the reason for doing it, because that's a big thing. The reason for doing it thing is a big thing, but that would probably eliminate any artist block, because it wouldn't be a consideration. You know what I mean? It's just a case of, I love doing this. I just love doing it. So why would I stop myself from doing it? Because you wouldn't, would you? It's that would probably eliminate your block. But as I said, it's each their own. I think it's not a one size fits all solution. I think you've got to really examine what it is that's blocking you and deal with that. Anyway, I'm going to continue with this. It might end up being by the looks of it, might end up being I don't know. I kind of call these paintings because they've got context, you know, on a chair, on a background, but this might end up being like that. I'm going to fix some of the alignments. I'm going to fix some of the sizes. This is the cheap paper. This is the expensive paper, not the cheap paper. But it's not particularly suitable. This was cheap paper, and you can see how the charcoal, it wasn't the kid stuff that I used this morning, but you can see how the charcoal has much more of a depth to it. This tends to be, and this is cream as well. I'm not know whether or not I prefer cream or white, but this stuff has this, it emphasises the granular nature. That's what this does, because the surface is actually grabbing the charcoal. But as I say, whether or not it'll end up being it might well be once I've fixed all the alignments and the densities and stuff like that. So at the moment, it's just a case of I'm still in the situation of getting things in the right place. So it may well end up being a bit of a production. So I don't know yet. If it does, you'll see it on a later video today.